The following may contain offensive language, adult humor, and or content that some viewers may find offensive. The views and opinions expressed by any one speaker does not explicitly or necessarily reflect or represent those of Mark Radulich or W2M Network. Please listen with caution, or don't listen at all.
Hooray for Hollywood, where stars are living large, in mansions with their servants and their credit cards in charge, with fame that's fleeting, but the egos never change, where everyone's a genius, except the ones who really arrange. Hooray for Hollywood, where the scandals always sell, where every whispered secret is a new tabloid's tell. Oh, how we adore the endless red carpet galore. Hooray for Hollywood, where less is always more.
I think I was talking to Erica that this was after the Bamboozled podcast, that I was going to start doing all my podcasts in like blackface, and that I was going to start doing a lot of like blackface hands. Like, that's just going to be a thing I'm going to do for this year. What do you think about that?
I can't stop you.
I can't stop you is the phrase that pays
You should definitely do it for the month of February.
Yeah, absolutely. I can do the entirety of our Black History Month podcast all in blackface.
You know what you should do is the Roddy Piper.
Yeah, do half and half.
So when you're speaking positively about it, you turn so the black half is facing, and when you're speaking negatively about it, you turn so that.
I just sent Jonas a TikTok clip of Roddy Piper doing the Piper's Pit with Jimmy Snuka
when he breaks the coconut over his head.
What no one remembers is the interview that preceded that, where Jimmy Snuka went on Piper's Pit in earnest, in good faith, and Piper just berated him and wouldn't let him talk. And so that second one is Roddy Piper apologizing for his boorish behavior, and he's trying to make Jimmy Snuka feel at home, so he brings him a pineapple.
I remember.
And then he brings him, and then he throws bananas at him, and then he says, "It's not just one coconut." Isn't it like he takes out the coconut, and the camera pans back, and there's a spotlight on it. We all know what's coming. It was like the third coconut that he got out of the bag. Yeah. It was like I got you a coconut. Don't you like coconuts? Aren't you Jimmy Superfly Snuka? Aren't you a murderer? And then boom, hits him in the head with it.
Yes, he is. So the last question.
Well, he wasn't going to say that on Piper. I don't think he'd killed her by that point. But anyway, I sent Jonas that clip because it still makes me laugh. And the funniest thing about Piper's Pit, and the way Piper was treating Jimmy Snuka, is that's every TikTok live. There's this, no one's listening to each other. No one's listening to each other. Everyone's talking over each other. Somebody's yelling. Can I please just finish? Can I get a word in edgewise here? And then a communist hits him with a coconut. It's the weirdest thing.
Mark, it's funny that you bring that up.
A communist hitting a TikToker with a coconut?
Because I distinctly recall about a week ago your TikTok where you said, "I am closing the chapter on interacting with the communists." And yet here you are still interacting with the communists.
My doing a bit, a comedic bit, interlocking many different corners of the comedic universe and drawing that one reference is not me opening the book and interacting with these nutbags, sir.
Uh-huh.
You wound me. As per usual. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, you are listening to a Rad Religion Broadcasting premier podcast, Damn You, Hollywood. And him right there is your host, Robert Winfrey. Yay! And for those of you watching just me on TikTok, wondering who the fuck is he talking to, I am on YouTube currently talking to my good friend, Robert Winfrey, good to his mother. And if you'd like to hear us, go to W2M Network on YouTube. But if you'd just like to see me sitting here talking in the dark, stay where you are. Robert?
Well, tonight, everyone, we are talking about 28 years later of the Bone Temple. And this is one of those rare occasions when Mark and I kind of switch places. See, normally I am the somewhat...
This is the Damn You Hollywood version of Freaky Friday.
Normally, I'm the one who's mostly disinterested and going along for the ride and talking just about the technical stuff. And Mark's the one trying to breathe some life into everything. He's the one who cares about what's going on. He's the one yelling about, no, don't you understand? Here's the emotional context. Here's why this thing is great. And I'm sitting here going, you can yell at me to the cows come home about how great Boys in the Hood is. I don't care. Nothing about this is interesting.
So welcome to our review of the Boys in the Hood of the zombie genre.
How dare you demean this IP by likening it to Boys in the Hood, sir?
You brought that up, not me. Ladies and gentlemen,
you could have at least chosen a good movie.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Bamboozled of the zombie genre.
Okay, now you just made it worse.
28 years later, the Bone.
You would have been better to liken it to Don't Be a Menace.
Okay, then. 28 years later, Bonin' in the Boneyard, as the Fishbone song goes, is a 2026 post-apocalyptic horror film directed by Nia DaCosta. You may have remembered her from such films as The Marvels and Candyman 2021.
The ending on Candyman is pretty bad.
And written by Alex Garland. You may remember him from such films as the other 28 years later movies and Civil War.
Civil War and a bunch of other stuff where he just vomits onto the page because style over substance.
It was
theme over substance.
Back to back, butt to butt, with its predecessor, 28 years later, 2025. It serves as the fourth installment in the 28 Days Later film series. It stars Ralph Fiennes, Jack O'Connell, Alfie Williams, Erin Kellyman, and Chi Lewis-Parry. 28 Years Later was in your top 10, right? I think it was number 10, if I remember correctly.
9. It kind of look, I reserved my literal number 10 spot for something way off the beaten path. 28 Years Later kind of barely made it in. I debated between that and The Long Walk. And I knew Alexis would put The Long Walk in there so we could talk about it if we wanted to, so I went with 28 Years Later.
That's fair. You like this series? When we did the Long Road to Ruin on it, which for those that don't know, Long Road to Ruin is a podcast that I do where we look at movie franchises. So last year, due to timing, we were not able to do 28 Years Later when it came out in the theater, so we waited until it was streaming, and we did all three movies at the same time because I had never talked about them. I had said at the time in that show that the first one's great, the second one doesn't seem like it fits in with the series, and the third one was a return to form, though still not as good as the first one. You want to give your 50 words or less summation of the trilogy?
That's about accurate. I've got a little bit of a softer spot for 28 Weeks Later than most, for a variety of reasons. But ultimately, there's a half decent idea in there somewhere that is not properly expanded upon in the rush to get to get the sequel out while people were still kind of buzzing about 28 Days Later, which legitimately shook up the zombie film genre and is one of my favorite movies of all time. And then 28 Years Later, it's a little bit back to that form. The first act of 28 Years Later is genuinely great. Yeah. It's one of the best 30 minutes you'll spend in a theater, that 30 to 40 minutes. Then, it loses a bit of steam. The middle's okay. The actual finale, the third act gets a little bit dicier, not terrible. The very ending is way out of left field. And having now seen this, I feel fairly confident in saying the original idea was just one movie, and somewhere along the line they split it. But if you have actual self-restraint in the writing process, between 28 Years Later and 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple, you have one excellent movie. As it stands, we have one uneven movie and one uneven movie.
We got a comment here. By the way, the first guy was like, what's the stream about? There's a picture and a scroll. I'm not answering those questions anymore. However, Sony Pictures will bounce back with Spider-Man Brand New Day and Jumanji 3 at the box office. Yeah, Sony, weirdly enough, we used to make fun of the fact that Sony was a failing studio. Sony, one of the few actually doing okay. It's quietly treading water.
Sony also was smart enough business-wise to not break the bank trying to create their own streaming service, so they just licensed their material out.
Yeah, they were the smart ones. They just licensed their shit to Netflix.
Or other places. Amazon has some of their stuff. they don't have, because they are not structurally tied to an overarching entity, they can shop their stuff anywhere. So
I don't want to spend too much longer on this, but you actually make a brilliant point, because if you'll remember, we've talked about this recently, and that's the only reason why I'm bringing this up again. When Disney did their Disney Plus Day and Paramount Plus did their big marketing event saying what Paramount Plus was going to be, Peacock never really did this. They just kind of came into existence and then quickly got the WWE, and that was like their big splash. But both Disney and Paramount Plus, like, we're doing our own streaming services. Here's the giant list of IP that we own, and all of it's going to have TV shows and movies. Get ready, open wide. And you're right, and it killed all three of those studios in different ways. And we've talked about it at length and in a lot of different facets, so I don't want to get too much into it here. But Sony really did avoid that poison pill real well.
As a general rule, yeah, they took the smarter route, as it turns out, in the long run. So good for them. I don't know. I actually have very muted expectations for Jumanji 3 for a number of reasons, but yeah, Spider-Man's probably going to be fine. That's the one superhero IP that doesn't seem to be dead.
Completely damaged. So I only want to say this, and then you can get right into I'm kind of going to introduce the plot synopsis by saying the following. Post-apocalyptic worlds are as much a part of the movie-making industry as most genres. It's a subgenre unto its own. And sometimes the post-apocalyptic worlds are interesting enough that you can build a series out of it. Certainly Mad Max tried. And sometimes it's kind of let's define the terms of this particular post-apocalyptic world, and then let's leave it because there's nothing more we can do with this. I'm preferential to the former rather than to do the latter rather than the former. I think going back to the world of 28 days later to see what England looks like now that it's been isolated from the rest of the world and the anger virus has been contained. Going back almost 30 years later is, I think, an interesting idea, and there's an opportunity to show you what this particular world looks like, nigh on 30 years later, and you do it once and then go away, because now that our Alex Garland has done that, he's like, look, here's a little enclave of people. Here's kind of what the zombies morphed into. Here's how life works. And here's this weird temple made of people's bones. Okay. I've now seen enough of this world. I don't need to see any more. And I'm going to set you up to do the plot synopsis this way. The Bone Temple did nothing but reaffirm my already strong belief that there was nothing more interesting about this world that I didn't get already from 28 years later. I'm not interested in the world he's painted anymore.
Again, I think with proper restraint, this is only one movie.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a really, it's a great movie. If you can see the bones of it, you can see what's going on there. Unfortunately, because we live in the world we live in. I like this guy's comment.
Zombies seem to be the only genre nowadays. Yeah.
So, yeah, as for the plot, this picks up pretty much where the previous one leaves off.
With the Eurotrash Power Rangers?
Yeah. So, Spike is cornered in a pool in an old water park by the Jimmies. And the big Jimmy, Jack O'Connell, says, you can join us if you kill one of the other Jimmies. You can take his place. And Spike's like, well, I don't want to die. So, okay. And he doesn't fight very well.
Not unreasonable.
He doesn't fight very well because we have to regress him for some reason. If I have a gripe, it's that a chunk of what Spike does here ignores the arc he went on in the first movie.
Well, okay. If I'm remembering this wrong, feel free to do as you have done for 15 years and correct me. He was taught long-range bow and arrow fighting. He was not taught hand-to-hand combat.
That was the emphasis. I don't mind him losing. It's more the attitude. Like, they I'll get into it later. I
Okay.
don't want to.
My other defense of that, Your Honor, is killing zombies is not killing a boy slightly older than you.
Again, I'll debate this with you later. Let me get through this.
Sounds great.
And he struggles a bit, but the older kid is one of those morons who doesn't understand how knife fights work. See, if you are the better fighter than the other guy and it's hand to hand, okay. If there's a force multiplier the magnitude of a good sharp knife, this is a bad idea on any number of levels. So Spike stabs him in the leg.
Gets an artery in the process.
He stabs him in the thigh, and this kid, this teenager, because he's an idiot who grew up in this wasteland, removes the knife from his leg. For the record, everyone, pretty basic medical advice here, but if you're not a doctor, don't pull something out that's been stabbed into you. If it's in there, leave it in there until you get to the medical professional. So he removes the knife, which then means that the femoral artery that was severed erupts all over the place. It's one of the biggest arteries in the body.
It's like a Gallagher show.
So all the other Jimmies look at this and go, boy, that kind of sucked. But yeah, that's your femoral artery. And Big Jimmy goes, yep, he's dead. So come on now. What's your name, fella? And he goes, my name's Spike. And he goes, nah, your name's Jimmy, like the rest of us. And they drag Spike along with their merry band of people who would rather be in the Crossed universe.
All right, do me a favor. Speed this up.
The rest of this is going to cut back and forth between the Jimmies and Ray Fiennes with Dr. Kelson. So I'm going to kind of go fairly quickly here. Kelson has started to befriend a very large alpha infected that we met last in the previous movie, Samson. Big fella, long hair, beard, no pants.
My kind of guy.
And every time Samson shows up, Kelson will shoot him with a tranquilizer dart because he doesn't want to have his head ripped off by a very large, muscular man.
It's amazing what self-preservation will do.
But part of what he is shooting him with is morphine. It's a cocktail designed to incapacitate, but not necessarily to kill. And the thing about morphine is even if you're a infected 7-foot-tall rage monster, it's addictive. So Samson keeps coming back like, hey, give me some more of that good shit, pal.
I got these cheeseburgers.
And Kelson's like, yeah, all right. I'm bored, lonely, and a little crazy. So he's able to sort of condition Samson to like not be a murderous rage monster anymore. All they need for the Hulk, morphine. So he slowly kind of gets him to like hang out and just get high with him, and they become friends. And at the same time, the Jimmies find another group of people, and they do horrible things, like skinning them alive, horrible. They make an offer to one of them to, if you fight one of the Jimmies and you win, you can join us, and him not wanting to be flayed alive. That's a really bad way to go. Picks one of them. He loses the fight, but before he can be killed, slowly and painfully, one of his, I think, wife, who is pregnant, is up in the hayloft of this barn where this is all happening, is able to fatally wound the Jimmy who's going to kill him. People start chasing her. The wounded guy who was about to be killed lights a propane tank as an improvised flamethrower, kills a couple of more of the Jimmies. Long story short, somewhere in there, one of the Jimmies, Jimmy Inc., through the use of broken binoculars, but one side was still good, so a monocular, sees Dr. Kelson and Samson in their drug-induced haze, kind of just hanging out. And she goes, oh, you're the devil. Because you're kind of a creepy old man. your skin looks red from a distance because he's covered in iodine.
It should be noted that they had been saying this whole time. It's at the start of the movie. Head Jimmy, whoever O'Connell said something about old Nick. The legend of the rage monsters is that Satan dispersed them amongst the land, and that's how we got to where we are now. So they are calling Satan Old Nick, and they are blaming the zombies on Satan.
Yeah, that's kind of Jimmy's personal mythos. And so she sees this Dr. Kelson from a distance, looking creepy,
and thinks it's Old Nick,
dancing with Samson, this very large, very obviously infected alpha, who's just like, yeah, sure, I'll dance with you. I'm high as balls right now. I'll do anything. And she's like, wow, you must be the devil, because this is what I've been raised to believe. So she, now with the Jimmy's numbers diminished, they're down to like 5. They lost a couple. She says, well, rather than letting one of us kill Spike for displeasing you, because he displeased him, how about we go actually ask Old Nick in person? We can ask the devil, because I saw the devil. And Jimmy goes, what do you mean you saw the devil? The devil's in my head. So they go and they see Dr. Kelson, and Samson is out wandering around, slowly kind of coming back to himself. It's kind of the vibe that's going on there. And so then Big Jimmy goes down to talk with Kelson.
This is the best part of the movie.
It really is. It's great. And they have a conversation, and it's pretty good. And Jimmy, what they want, and there's a bit where Jimmy asks him, so you're the devil? You're Satan? And he goes, no, I'm Ian. And Jimmy's like, oh boy, that's a relief, man. You have no idea. I was about to freak out a little bit. And yeah, it's summed up basically when Kelson at one point goes, no, I don't believe in the devil. I'm an atheist, and you're a Satanist. So here we are. They talk for a little bit. There's sort of like conflicting worldviews come into play a bit here, where Jimmy kind of just mentions like, you're old enough to remember the world that was. And Kelson's like, yeah, some of it. Like, time has passed, and there's a bunch of details I don't remember because time has passed. But I do remember some things. And Jimmy goes, yeah, I was 8 when this all kind of kicked off. And because we see that it's the opening. He sort of recounts the opening bit from 28 years later, which is what we saw there. And then he goes, okay, so look, here's the problem we're in, Doctor. I've got some people back there who think I hear the devil, and they think you're the devil. Well, he does kind of hear the devil because he's crazy, but they think you're the devil. And I can't go back there and just tell them that you're not, because I'll lose a little bit of my sway, and in order to regain it, I'll have to kill you violently. And Kelson's like, yeah, that does put us in a pickle, doesn't it? Because I don't want to die.
Well, I don't want to be dead, so how do we get out of this?
So he agrees to pretend to be the devil for one night only.
And what goes from the best scene in the movie to the silliest?
I gotta be honest, I was down for that scene at that point. Like I'm into the crazy by that point. Like
Sure.
It's not great, but I'm there for it.
I couldn't stop laughing.
You're not supposed to take it super seriously, but anyway.
I should hope not.
So
actually, as soon as he pulled out Iron Maiden's Number of the Beast, I went, oh no. And then I saw what they did with the poor Number of the Beast, and I went, just enjoy it. I went, I'm going to lay back and think of England here, and so I did.
So Jimmy goes back to his people and says, okay, so we can go see the devil at night, and it's only going to be for one night only, and that's kind of what we're going to do here. And Spike tried to leave at one point, and he got saved by Kelly Inc., who were still trying to make a thing. Never mind, more on that later. So one of the other Jimmys dies, and we're down to 4 now, and Jimmy Inc., her name's Kelly, we'll get to that in a minute. And Kelly's like not fully buying what Jimmy's selling anymore as far as his like ability to lead what's going on. She's still kind of all in on the actual crazy, but not him as a person.
Yeah.
And Spike just wants to get out of here. Like he never signed up for any of this.
Yeah, they say If you haven't seen 28 Years Later, Spike wanders into a horde of zombies, and the Jimmies save him and kind of like adopt him from that point on, and then the movie ends.
Yeah. So everyone does their last minute thing. So one of the things that goes on here is Kelson gets Samson. Samson wanders back. And Kelson's like, I've been thinking a little bit about this, and I think that I, out here isolated in the middle of nowhere, have found the key to solving this infection, or at least treating it better. Because I think there is a psychiatric component to what's going on. There's a bunch of physical problems that come with it being infected. There's the hemorrhaging, there's the spasmodic part of it, but there's also...
He figures out that there's also schizophrenia.
There's also some kind of, like schizophrenic, psychotic component. And we can treat that. So he gets a little bit of a cocktail of pills and says to the drug Samson, swallow these and we'll just see what happens.
Yes, modern medicine making its way into the movie. You have a host of conditions. Here's a host of pills. Have fun.
Give or take. There's also a brief scene earlier where Kelson tells Samson, like, man, your metabolism is running through my morphine way faster than I want to get rid of it. So I'm going to euthanize you now because there's nothing else for you, clearly. And then he says something. He says a word. He says moon because he's looking at the moon and it's pretty. And Kelson goes, oh, you might actually, wait, we might actually be getting somewhere here. Like, I'm not as crazy as I thought I was.
At this point, has he been to the bus?
No, this is where he goes to the train.
Okay. Yeah, the train.
So he gets the cocktail of pills, and Samson wanders off. But as his mind starts to come back, he goes to a train, which is a memory from his human time. And he sits on the train, and his mind finally clears. But all the other infected have been following him around, because that's what happens with alphas. It's like they sort of provide for the other ones who are too stupid to do anything for themselves. The others look at him and go, are you still infected? And he goes, I mean, a little, clearly, but my mind seems clear. And like, well, that's not good enough, buddy. So now we have to attack you.
You're either all the way in or no way in.
Yeah. So you're not going to be a horseman anymore, Sting. And they attack him. And he fights off this horde of infected through the train, and he emerges with his mind clear. For how long, who knows? But he emerged with his mind clear. Anyway, back to the Bone Temple. The Jimmies all show up, and Ralph Fiennes orchestrates a performance set to Iron Maiden's Number of the Beast. Like, I feel like every British guy wants to do something like this to an Iron Maiden song. Which one might vary, but
riding around on a broomstick to the trooper.
Yeah, why not? So he does this whole performance, and then he's still looking like the devil, stand before them and says, okay, let me give you some words, some commandments, and you will leave. And you're going to continue on with your mayhem and torture and depravity. You're going to get more Jimmies because you need more Jimmies. You can't have a proper cult with only 4 people. And you're going to obey Head Jimmy without question. And this is an exchange for his life. He and Jimmy came to this conclusion. I will give your acolytes who have also partially drugged at this point early in the display. I will give them these commandments, and you go on your way and you leave me alone, and I won't expose you, and we're all good. And then as they're about to leave, he recognizes Spike. And Kelson goes, you know what? I can't quite let this much evil.
I cannot sacrifice the child to this cult.
The world's bad enough. I don't need to make it worse. So he says to them, what
is the line from Lord of the Rings? We will not leave Merry and Pippin to the horrors.
Torment and death.
Yeah, that's more or less what happens there.
So he tells the little Jimmies. Now I'm visualizing this whole thing being done by R-Truth.
And John Cena? Yeah, never mind.
Little Jimmy's over there. Anyway, so he tells the little Jimmies that in order for Big Jimmy to really take his proper place at the right hand of Satan, much like the child of God, the child of the devil must be sacrificed. And you will do this, and you will gain much power. And Big Jimmy, who knows this is a sham, goes, we shooting here, brother? and stabs Ralph Fiennes in the stomach. But this is now like broken the remnants of control, and Kelly kills a couple of the other Jimmies, and then Spike stabs Big Jimmy, and what's going to kill him eventually. And he collapses, and then Spike talks with Kelson, and Kelson's like, I just think you've suffered enough, man. I did this because I wanted to do something good.
Yeah.
And Kelly goes, oh, I thought you were the devil. And he goes, no. There is no devil, there's just us, which is a stupid line, but more on that later. And Kelly goes, I'm still kind of crazy, so how about I obey your last command? And she then crucifies Big Jimmy upside down because it's an inverted cross.
Yes, because Satanism, see?
Yeah.
Which, at that point, I think they should have played Slayer's, like Angel of Death.
There's a lot of things they could have played there. So Kelson is left there to slowly bleed out in his bone temple, but feeling somewhat content, and Jimmy's left to have his breakdown. Samson wanders by, freaks the heck out of the dying Jimmy, because he's an alpha that looks a little creepy anyway. But his mind is clear, and he finds Kelson. He says, thank you for giving me my sanity, my life. I'm back. And Kelson, seeing that he's done the last good thing a physician can do, dies peacefully, and Samson carries him off. And then the infected show up and tear Jimmy to pieces while he's nailed to a cross. And had the movie ended here, I would have felt mostly okay about it. Instead, we cut away to elsewhere in the countryside, where a teenage girl is doing homework, history homework in point of fact, being lectured by Jim, Cillian Murphy from the first 28 Days movie, talking about, the aftermath of World War II and why changes in economic conditions and general treating of people and treating of the defeated enemy changed after that, because conditions after World War I were a direct contributor to the start of World War II. And she then asks her father, who just wants to lecture about the dangers of fascism and populism and nationalism.
Because Alex Garland.
Yes. But what about the Soviet Union, Dad? And he goes, we're communists in this house. We don't talk about the Soviet Union.
Everything worked fine. Everything worked fine in the Soviet Union. Communism always works everywhere it's been tried.
Actually, what he says is what every academic professor actually says is, I wrote the test, and I don't want to talk about this or think about it. So, do what you're told. Then they hear commotion. So they go and they see Kelly and Spike being chased by a horde of infected, and because they're good people, they go help. And that's where the movie ends. And where the third one will presumably pick up, because they're doing another one of these.
So, it's fine. It's a well-made movie. It's very well acted. What I've said previously about the cinematography, I will repeat here because it's still the same cinematography. It's a different director this time around. Danny Boyle directed, I believe, the last one. Nia DaCosta directed this one. And despite having been saddled with the Marvels and everything that Marvel has wrought, Nia DaCosta is a fine director. She is competent. She has an aesthetic. She has a vision. She has a good handle for material that she's being given. Nothing wrong with her. She may not be your particular cup of tea, but she is not an incompetent director. Nor is she like, who is the jackass that we make fun of from the X-Men movies? Not Bryan Singer, the one that came out.
Brett Ratner.
Yeah, she's not the Brett Ratner 5000.
She's close.
No, she isn't. Don't be that way. So anyway,
she's the indie art house version of the Ratnertron 3000.
I'll give you that one just because I don't feel like fighting with you. My problem with this movie is it's a lot of watching bad people do gross shit for a good 2/3 of this movie. And I'm not interested in that. If you're interested in that, you'll have a great time with this. I wasn't. That's not necessarily an objective knock on the movie. It's doing exactly what it said it was going to do in this world, in the zombie genre. The zombie genre, not known for not being gross. So
true.
It is what it is. I said at the top of this, I don't really find this world to be very interesting anymore. I think we got all of what we needed from that with 28 years later. And my only reason for not screaming to the clouds, please stop doing these, is I get the impression after watching this, the third one's going to fundamentally change this world or heal it in some way. At least I hope. So if we're getting to a point of we're going to fundamentally change things, we're going to heal, we're going to, cure the infected, that sort of thing. We're going to bring England back. We're going to make England great again. Then okay, I'm kind of with this and I kind of want to see where this goes. As it stands now, I'm not that interested. The kid playing Spike is good. He's perfectly serviceable in his role.
Fine. He was fine in the first one. He's fine in this one.
Yeah, the guy playing Head Jimmy, what's his name?
Jack O'Connell. He's great. He's really good.
Jack O'Connell is actually like the best part of this movie. Now, Ralph Fiennes is a stellar actor. Go see him in, what is it? The restaurant, the dinner,
the menu.
I was close.
Look, Ralph Fiennes is great in anything he does.
Yeah, like if you like Ralph Fiennes, watch him in a better movie. Go watch The Menu. We raved about that when it came out. Here, he's just doing a lot of Ralph.
Such an impression you couldn't even remember the title.
Shut up. I'm like, I can't even get it out of my brain. You bully. But Ralph Fiennes is always good. So here, he's just as always good. But the standout performance is Jack O'Connell.
Yeah.
He does a really, really good job, and Nia DaCosta's direction of him, I think, really adds to this. It's just the right blend of like cult leader and while being still understated. Like he's not so over the top it got silly. So I think he's really, really great in this. The rest of his flunkies, including Jimmy Inc., I don't find in any way interesting at all.
They're not. Please stop trying to make Erica Kellyman a thing.
Well, that's the thing. It's like I looked at her and I'm like, this is yet again. It's like we're starting to get away from the girl boss thing, and I don't want to beat that particular thing to death because if you like that sort of thing, go listen to the guys that do it much better than us and more incessantly. But I'm still kind of sensitive to every time we have a girl who doesn't really earn it be given too much in a film. I tend to have a knee-jerk reaction. So, like, here we have a gang of wild boys, and it's the girl that always gets the better of them. And I'm like, oh, come on already with this. This is once again gender wish fulfillment and liberal patronizing. And if I hadn't already seen it a zillion times and watched it tank the industry, I might have more patience for it. But whatever. It is what it is. But
yeah, she's not. Let me do the very brief thing. In fairness, too, she's not a full-on girl boss, but she's on that spectrum just enough to like ping all the disgust.
Yeah, it was.
I think I feel like in the better version of this, that character is the oldest boy in the group, who's like actually starting to develop personality, worldview that is in conflict with Big Jimmy, and instead, we give it to this female character because, of course, we do.
I like the Samson stuff. Watching him get his memory back, and then the sequence on the train, gross as it was, I actually really enjoyed it. It made the movie much more interesting to me.
That bit when he does the, I don't have a ticket.
Yeah.
That's on. It's not exactly this good as the reference I'm about to make, but it's on the same scale. That's somewhere on the scale of like Caesar saying no like just to see this, big, stupid, infected monster form a full coherent sentence.
Yeah. And
have like clarity like that. Like him saying moon is a decently big deal, but he's drugged enough at that point. And it's like pointing and saying like, red, moon. Like it's
I'm thinking of like Frankenstein, the Guillermo del Toro. Where
when he first says Elizabeth.
Yeah, but even before that, the first thing that he was repeating ad nauseum and that made the doctor go crazy.
Victor, when he just says Victor over and over again. So, like the moon thing can be something like that, but then suddenly I don't have a ticket. And you're like it's working again.
Yeah, all of a sudden, like, it's Doc Brown with the two cables and Back to the Future. It's like, haha, we have electricity.
Yeah, like that. It's a great moment.
Yeah, so that's the second best part of the movie. And honestly, it's the only part where there's a character with an arc, because Spike doesn't really have one.
No, Spike's is kind of an observer for this part of the movie.
Kelly just gets disillusioned and walks away from the cult, as all smart people do. The only one that has an arc here is fucking Samson. So
yeah, it's an unfortunate bit about where they chopped. But I might die on the hill that this was originally one script, one story.
Yeah.
If you take Kelson from where we find him in 28 years later to where he ends in Bone Temple, like that arc across two movies is a real arc.
Sure.
But in each individual movie, not so much.
So the only thing I'm going to say is that I'm going to let you handle it, because I don't really have much more to... I walked out of this movie, and it's funny that, like, we switch places here, because I walk out of most movies very happy to talk about it, very excited to talk about it with you, even if I know you're not going to like it. I'll usually have gone with my kids, so I'll have talked to them about it. Just like, okay, this is why I still continue to do this podcast. I very rarely walk out the way you walk out of most movies, which is, well, I'm doing it for the show. Doing it for Mark, doing it for the lulz. And I walked out of this movie with a profound sense of, I'm doing it for the duty of the show and for Robert. I have no compulsion to talk about this movie beyond it's on the schedule. But I do like to stretch my muscles as an amateur critic. And so I really did so it does force me to have to think about, like, well, what's good, what's bad about this. Last thing I will say, because I would have been silly if I had forgotten about this. We mentioned it already. I wanted to bring it up in the full review. If given the challenge of convince the lemmings that you're Satan, and he's like, let me look through Sonny and Cher, Megadeth, Earth, Wind, and Fire. I still have this, and they're like, all right, here it is. Iron Maiden, The Number of the Beast. All right, I will play this because they wouldn't have heard it before. They're not going to know what this is. And
they probably have never, like, reliably heard projected music before.
Yeah, given the way this world operates. So, like, all right, it has that bit in the beginning. This is a real number. The number of the beast is 666. So it'll do that, and that'll set up the ambiance. And then I will come out and do gothic dancing by way of electrocution, and I will just go hoo ha huzzah. Like I've seen this before. I used to go goth dancing. And he's got the makeup on, and he's wearing the parachute pants, and I'm like, I know you. I've seen you before. And then he's running around and he's blowing like PCP into their face or something. Yeah, I assumed it was that or something hallucinogenic. And here's the thing. If you're in the moment, if you're living it, it's probably a really cool experience. Here is the parallel that I will draw. I started moshing at about like 14, 15 years old. I have been in mosh pits up until very recently. Not with the decline of my health, not so much. But up until then, I was still moshing into my late 40s. Now my son has picked up the mantle. I am very proud.
Remind him to keep the center of gravity low. He won't get knocked over.
He knows. But watch your neck. You're gonna get punched in it. I get punched in my neck. How did you know? But if you've ever actually like watched a mosh pit, it's the stupidest fucking thing. Especially with what it's become, where a lot of
the Viking metal guys all sit down and row.
That oh god, I hate white people. When they started incorporating a lot of like the hardcore dancing from, like, if you've ever seen the Step Down video for Sick of It All, it's like it's a demonstration of different like hardcore dance moves. So it's like picking up change, the lawnmower, the gorilla, the old school Bialon, which is now the Braveheart, all of that. It looks dumb. And if you need another example of this, there was a meme for a while of a bunch of goth kids dancing underneath an overpass. And if you're in it, it's fun. It's fun to dance. It's fun to listen to that music. It's fun to be a part of that culture. If you're an outsider looking at that, it looks like a bunch of retards fucking being electrocuted. It looks ridiculous. And that's kind of how I felt about that scene. Like, I kind of put myself in the position of those characters. How would this feel if I were there, especially given I don't know what any of this is. I haven't heard this. I haven't heard music. I haven't heard this. I don't know what he's doing, and I'm supposed to be convinced it's Satan. Okay. I allowed somebody put in before you have to have suspension of disbelief. Yeah, suspension of disbelief must be attained before admission. And I'm right there with you, man. I did suspend my disbelief enough to get through that scene. But as soon as my suspension of disbelief was over, and I had to think about it again, I'm like, it's the dumbest thing I've ever seen. It's so silly looking. And maybe that was the intent. These are people who clearly have an appreciation for metal and know that it is both awesome and silly all at the same time, because that's how it came across.
I think that's the only way to approach it is, these are characters that don't know anything about what this presentation is.
Right.
They've probably never really heard, if they've heard music, it's like leftover, music boxes, stuff like that, but you still got to try and keep quiet in general, or it's stuff that in safe locations people have done with, again, leftover instruments. They've certainly never heard something heavy and something like Iron Maiden.
Right. And I think the other thing about that is I was watching their reactions to it. And again, when you're in the moment, when Jimmy starts dancing around, he's doing like high knees and stuff. If you let music move you, you will move in directions your body never intended. That is a good thing. However, it will also look awfully silly. And I was having, I was somewhat having a hard time reconciling the two. Not to say that this makes the movie bad or anything. I'm just kind of sharing my personal experience with it. I think if you lined up 100 people, you would get 100 different reactions to that scene.
Probably.
I don't think there's one universal way to approach that. I was talking to Jason on Thursday about Bamboozled, and I said the very first time they put on blackface is a beautifully crafted scene. And I think if you took the same 100 people, 50% would agree with me. The other 50% wouldn't know what the fuck I was talking about. And that's also okay. This one is much weirder than what Spike Lee was doing in Bamboozled in that one particular scene. It's the point that I'm trying to make. So, your thoughts?
As a general rule, I very much enjoyed the movie. I think this is a strong kind of way to start the year for film. Because January is still kind of a dumping ground.
I saw Primate.
You saw Anaconda, too.
Anaconda was much better than it had any right to be. However, Primate's on the early list for worst movie of the year so far.
Fair enough. I have no intention of seeing it, so
please don't. It is awful.
So getting a good movie kind of off the ground early in the year is actually a nice, refreshing change of pace for some of this stuff. So the movie is less than 2 hours long. Thank you.
90 minutes.
Well, 150 with credits.
Well, no, I'm just saying, like we root for 90 minutes now.
We, you and I have lamented the loss of like the well-crafted, well-honed, streamlined. That said, I almost would have preferred, personally, again, have a little bit of self-control, cut down a bunch of this stuff. Not a bunch. There is sort of a bunch. There's chunks of the first movie you could cut out. There's chunks of this one you could cut out and cut down, and give me one like 2.5, maybe close to 3 hour movie. And I would have enjoyed that. I think that's the best version of this part of the story, and it would have been great. Like, I think genuinely great. But for whatever reason, we didn't get that. So I'm not gonna harp on it too much. Ralph Fiennes is great as always. His ability to just like bring humanity and connection out of anything is absolutely tremendous. He's one of those actors that I think, for as many accolades and nominations and whatnot as he's achieved over his career, he is deeply underappreciated as far as like how much we talk about him, because he is great. This is a big turn for Jack O'Connell. He did something else recently. Let me find it.
It's probably a movie.
Yes, you are helpful. Oh, right. He's the no, he's the Irish vampire in Sinners.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
So he's kind of getting some mileage out of this archetype at the moment, but he does really good work here. Like you said, like trying to hit the right balance of, charismatic and like, why are these people following him? Well, here's why. He tells them a good story about the world. He lets them indulge in their worst impulses, and then because that traumatizes you, he just reinforces it. And he, knows enough to, like, you can see how a bunch of these people would have been dead without him, sort of. Like, it's not hard to infer that. And then, like, marrying that with, I'm kind of pulling this crap out of my ass, and I never actually emotionally, a worldview, personality-wise, developed beyond the age of about 12. Harmonizing all that into a believable, interesting performance is not the easiest thing in the world to do, and he does it very, very well. So big ups to him on that one. He does great work here. Believe it or not, I want to give some kudos to the guy who plays Samson. He does a lot with just his physical performance.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't get dialogue. He's very, very, very little. It's all how he moves, what he does with his eyes.
Great acting with his face.
Tremendous. And the fact that he's got like that big old mustache, like there's a lot that could impede that performance. And he absolutely rises to the occasion. So again, big ups to him. He does really good work. Again, I think the odd performance out is, I'm not trying to pick on her, but Kellyman is just, for what that character is supposed to be, being sandwiched between like two actors, irrespective of gender, who are really going for it all the time, you come across as flat, as uninteresting.
Well, I think that's less a failure of acting than it is a failure of directing. They didn't want very much from her because, again, there's a bias. There's an inherent bias. There is, you are the most prettiest specialist girl. You don't need to do much. So she doesn't do much. And she's not and here's where I will give it to you. She's not a good enough actress to be better than average.
Yeah.
When not asked to give more than average.
And I think even if asked to give more than average, might struggle, but I'll wait to see actual evidence of that. That's a supposition on my part. Anyway.
Yeah, you don't know. That's the thing. We've never really seen it. But if somebody were to ask, if she had a really demanding director who needed more out of her, we don't know what she'd give. The fact of the matter is, no one's asking her to give more, so she's doing what the director asked of her. For all we know, she's got so much more going on inside of her and is frustrated that this is all she was able to do.
Yeah, we'll see.
Sort of the politics of low expectations.
Could be. So, and I could live with like that kind of a performance out of a character that's not supposed to be kind of integral to how the plot goes.
Yeah.
And is going to stick around for the next movie. Like, I need more from you. Like, I have to actually care about whether or not you live or die, and I don't. And that's, again, a big problem. You mentioned it, but it does bear repeating. There's some gross stuff in this movie, so if you're not adequately prepared for that, that will be a problem for you. But if you're not, doesn't bother me because, again, I'm like an 1/8 to a quarter gorehound, so it's in my DNA pedigree.
Here's the thing: there was a time when you guys used to make fun of me for being squeamish. I've gotten past a lot of the squeamishness. I mean, there's still stuff that bothers me, but it's kind of like I don't want to watch it. I don't want to watch people be disemboweled and dismembered. First of all, I've seen it in real life. It's gross. I've worked.
Yes, it is.
I've worked with inmates and suicidal inmates who have tried to disembowel themselves. Yuck. So again, when I'm watching this on screen, and like if you see me turn my head, you might be thinking, "Oh, Mark's squeamish. He doesn't like the gory stuff." No. Mark, I shouldn't have to watch things I don't. I shouldn't have to be forced to look at things I don't really enjoy. And here's the thing: I don't argue with the filmmaker feeling like this was necessary to show you in the movie to display the brutality of this group. I'm not saying take it out. And I elected to go see this movie, so I elected to go for the ride on this, gross as it is. But I can still turn my head.
Yeah. Look, you didn't walk out, so you're still a legitimate critic. So at least there's.
It's true.
More on that later, potentially. So I mentioned it before, but I do have a couple of like higher order gripes I have with this movie that are sort of, again, when I say higher order, I mean like thematic assumptions about what's going on that I disagree with. And I just think I thought it was important to talk about the movie on its own suppositions before I got into that. So taken on its own, again, there's a lot good here. There's some good cinematography. The difference between, there's a fairly easy camera trick that they do, but all of the stuff that's focused on Jimmy and his group is done handheld and shaky. All of the stuff with Kelson is very steady cam and very stable. So again, they're like trying to put you in the headspace. So when we're looking at things from like Jimmy's more or less point of view, it's erratic, it's unstable. When we're with Kelson, everything is like very pastoral, very settled, very even.
Yeah.
Even
when he's stripping balls, they don't really go esoteric, or ethereal with the
his trips are pretty mellow.
Yeah, it's very Strawberry Fields Forever, not Homer's peyote trip.
I love that episode. Anyway, so here's my higher order complaint about this. I am not a big fan of, in the context of these kinds of stories, this goes for all of them, I am not the biggest fan of, the rage monster just needs a little time, a little understanding, and the right, group of medication to become normal. It doesn't sit well with me for a lot of reasons. I'm okay with the character of Kelson trying it. I'm less okay with like the overall message being, no, the rage monsters aren't really the danger. The danger is humanity. Like humans are the real enemies is a thing that has been beaten to death so much I can't even take it seriously anymore. That doesn't mean you shouldn't do it if you think it's a part of important to your art or your story. Like,
you don't have an interesting way of adding to that particular conversation. Please stop doing it. It's not an interesting or original enough thought to do the way that everybody else has done it.
Yeah, if you're going to do it, like you need something interesting to go on there. Otherwise, you're just treading the same ground and pretending that you're the first one that did it, and you're not that interesting, guys. Neither is your art.
Yep.
So,
first of all, I want to say this really simply. If your whole like philosophical point of view is humans are the virus, good. You and every 10-year-old I've met. That is a child's philosophy. And it can be an interesting adult philosophy, but that all depends on what you're doing with it. But if you stopped at the end of that sentence and that's the sum total of it, nope. That's what children say. That's what children think. It's as deep as my son saying, "Why don't we just give everybody a house that'll cure homelessness?" Like it's that kind of like elementary school wish fulfillment.
Yeah. And bear in mind, I don't have a problem with you showing people being terrible when everything goes to hell. I have a problem with the end, with your like thesis being the zombie rage monsters are fine and can be saved, but watch out for the evil white guy with the inverted cross. Like that guy just needs to die in the most horrible way possible. No. Like you've lost the plot a little bit here, guys. I'm not opposed to the, again, like broad strokes. I'm not opposed to the stories where the monsters can be like helped, fixed. I don't even hate like the stuff from, I Am Legend, where this is just human evolution and now they're the normal ones and everything you did to try and fix them is actually monstrous when you think about it from this perspective that they're not just mindless monsters. But this bit about we're trying to, save, again, the hordes of rage monsters while humanity's the real problem is just stupid, reductive, repetitive, and profoundly uninteresting on a thematic level.
Yeah, for sure.
And I have a personal problem with the ending because I don't need Jim to be back in the picture. I don't know why you felt compelled to do this.
For the same reason we had to get fucking Alan Grant back in the Jurassic World 3.
Yeah, I know. I understand the studio note that says we have to do this. I get. I don't need it, guys. His story had a good conclusion. How about we leave it that way? There's a part of this whole coming back to this world that borders on Todd Phillips' Joker 2. Like the first 28 days later had its darkness, but it actually ended somewhat hopefully. And part of me feels like there's a bunch of Alex Garland that's been sitting in the back of his head going, they got it wrong, they got it wrong, they got it wrong, they enjoyed it wrong, they enjoyed it wrong, I got to fix it. And he finally got back. You're like, okay, we're going to undo everything. And I'm just going to make this as bleak as possible.
Yeah.
Because the artistic movement not moving beyond nihilism over the last 40, 50 years is just pathetic.
So I know I can talk to you about this because you'll at least give this thought a chance. Maybe you even thought it yourself. Unless you can think of a reason why it had to be this way. They brought that character back and they've given him an ersatz daughter, who of course is a young black girl.
Well,
go ahead.
I'll defend that. Because at the end of 28 days later, he's with Serena, a black woman. So if that's his child, it would be mixed race.
Okay. That's a detail that I had forgotten. But I was thinking, I had forgotten it, so my first thought was that kid could have been anybody. But they, of course, had to make it a young black girl. I'm starting to think, and I'll back off this point somewhat because you're saying, that's probably his biological daughter. Who else would it be? But you ever get the feeling sometimes Hollywood hates young boys? Just hates them.
All the time.
Okay.
All the time.
It's not
Mark.
just me. Maybe this is it's misplaced here, but not misplaced in general. Good.
Yeah. Honestly, it was kind of refreshing in the first 28 years later that Spike wasn't a giant pansy.
Yeah. We actually talked about that at length. When we did the
he's trying to figure out how he wants to interact with the world in terms of his worldview, but he's not some, pushover being lectured to all the time by strong female character number 37.
Yeah. Anything else about this movie? Because if not, we need to move on.
No, again, for the most part, I liked it. My higher order critiques, I maintain, and it's probably going to keep this off of my genuine best of list, but that's so high order that on its face, I'm happy to take the movie on its own terms. And on those terms, it is mostly successful. Again, I'm not sure what we're going to do with the next one because, again, I just don't know what we're going to do here.
You know what? They're gonna try to save England, and they're gonna, and it's gonna be about trying to treat and or cure the rage virus, and the big twist is going to be the evil white people who don't want this, who need the world to be as it is, and therefore will obstruct the good liberal folks from making the future better.
Let me just put it this way: I also don't think it was an accident that the alpha they chose to cure was Indian, because once we tame the violent rage impulses of the immigrants, they're fine, while you people who grew up watching Teletubbies are the real enemy and need to be killed horribly.
Yeah. Alex Garland has a perspective. I don't know if you know that or not.
I wish it was of something rushing at him quickly.
So what kind of American are you?
That's the more I've thought about that, that's the only good scene in that movie.
Yes, it's mostly because of Jesse Plemons' acting.
Entirely because of Jesse Plemons.
All right, here comes the money.
We're in the money. money.
Ah, yes, now. There we are. Alrighty. On a budget of $63 million, 28 years later, Bonin in the Boneyard has made $31.2 million. The film was initially expected to make 20 to 22 million over the 4-day Martin Luther King Jr. holiday weekend. However, it underperformed domestically, earning 13 million over the 3-day weekend and an estimated 15 over the 4-day holiday period. The film grossed an additional 16.2 million internationally, bringing its worldwide total to approximately 31 million. This represented a weaker U.S. domestic opening compared to its predecessor 28 years later, which debuted to 30 million over a traditional 3-day weekend. Let me ask you, and I don't want to debate this endlessly. It's like, let's just give it a proper minute. Do you think once, 28 years later, like, look, the old friend has returned, and we will go to the cinema to watch this thing because things are much, better when watched in the cinema. However, if we're going to do an immediate sequel based on a small part of this world, would it not have been better to go directly to streaming? Yes or no?
I can't answer that until I know what we're doing with the third one. I think it's kind of the
that is the only reason why I'm not banging a shoe on the table demanding this should have gone to streaming.
Let me put it this way. Mm-hmm. This could have, but if what you want to do is have the third one be kind of the big conclusion, you can't sell the third part of your trilogy if the middle part went straight to streaming. Like, you can't do the third one theatrically if the middle part.
That is exactly the argument that I was making. Is because I know there's going to be more to this, and there's going to be this, big gigantic conclusion that you want on the big screen. So you can't have the middle part be a streaming movie.
Yeah,
that'll be too much confusion for people. But isolated, this is very much a streaming movie.
This is, again, like, this is sort of, chunks of this are leftovers from the script from the first script. Again, I would bet my life this was one movie at one point, script-wise.
You bet your life. Hey, guess what's still the number one movie of the weekend?
Oh, look, Avatar: Fire and Ash.
Yes, sir. 5 weeks out, still the number one movie in the box office. Debuting at number 2 was 28 years later, The Boneyard. Zootopia went up a spot from 4 to 3. 8 weeks out from its release.
It swapped with The Housemaid. Zootopia 2, now actually the most successful, financially at least, animated movie Disney's ever released.
The Housemaid, 5 weeks out, has dropped from 3 to 4. Marty Supreme, 6 to 5. Primate, 2 to 6. Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring re-release, number 7.
It's if you haven't seen that movie in theaters, go watch it in theaters. It's out.
Yeah, I don't have over 12 hours. There was a time I would have. Not.
You can just watch the one, Mark. You don't have to watch all 3.
No, you have to watch all 3.
You don't have to. You can, but you don't have to.
Greenland 2 Migration dropped from 5 to 8. Anaconda 7 to 9. 2 Towers.
Those Greenland movies are going to have a very different context and about.
Waka waka.
I just dated this podcast horribly. I know.
You really.
As though the fact that we're talking about a movie on release doesn't date it already.
Charlie the Wonder Dog debuted at 18. The re-release of Madagascar debuted at 19. All You Need Is Kill. Debuted at 21. Night Patrol 25. A Private Life 30. Sound of Falling 37. Queen Kelly 42. And I would like to remind everybody there was a movie called Fuck My Son. Now then. Let's go to the weekend.
The punctuation within that sentence is very important.
So let's first go in the Wayback Machine to last year. Nija, still number 2. Zootopia, number 1. Zootopia 2 is number 2 with $1.7 billion.
Again, most successful animated movie Disney has ever released.
Good golly, Miss Molly. Yes. We didn't do the scorecard this year for the studios, but I'm now starting to wonder how close it would have been, because the top Three of the top 5 positions belong to Disney. Zootopia, Avatar, and Lilo and Stitch all made over $1 billion. Zootopia is getting near almost $2 billion. It's not going to make it, but it's close.
Well, again, Zootopia is a big hit in China, so the math is a little different with Chinese receipts.
In terms of total dollars, here we have 3 very successful movies, but
then on the
same studio.
The question is, at which point did they counterbalance the losses from the other stuff?
That's what I was getting to. Between Tron, Ares, Freaky Friday, all 3 Marvel movies, Snow White. They had a lot of bombs this year. So,
Disney might have just about broke even.
$3 billion, almost $4 billion they made.
Disney might have just about broke even when it's all said and done.
Jeez.
Especially doubly so when you factor in advertising, because that's depending on the budget, you spend 50 to 100% of your budget again on advertising. So,
all right, Minecraft stayed at 5. Jurassic World 6, Demon Slayer 7, How to Train Your Dragon 8.
The rest of this isn't moving.
Yeah. F1 is 9, and Superman hanging by a thread.
Superman not hitting 650 million is a big deal.
Yeah. Wicked for Good did not make the top 10.
Oof. Yeah.
And not a single Marvel movie made the top 10. As a matter of fact, over the course of the last few weeks, Fantastic Four dropped to 13. Captain America dropped to 17, and Thunderbolts dropped to 18. So
at this point, Thunderbolts was lucky to beat Sinners.
Here are the movies currently doing better than Snow White. Wicked for Good, Detective Chinatown, Conjuring Last Rites, Dead to Rights, Sinners, Final Destination, 731, Weapons, The Bad Guys 2, Five Nights at Freddy's 2, Now You See Me, Now You Don't, One Battle After Another. Here are the movies doing worse than Snow White.
Snow White didn't beat One Battle After Another.
Here. I'm going to throw you a softball. Ready? Batter up. Spit in the dirt. Put your hands together. Right. Choke the bat. Take a nice big fat swing. Here are the movies doing currently worse than Snow White. Predator, Badlands.
But boy, all those bots on Twitter were sure just convinced that thing was a success.
All right, so that's 2025. Well, by the time we get to February, we'll stop doing this because at that point there will be no more movement. But
that was 26. Yeah, Bone Temple's on top because
it's currently the number 1 movie in the world. Primate is number 2 at 24.
3 of the top 10 spots are occupied by re-releases of the Lord of the Rings trilogy. God bless.
That's Robert. Yes, that's funny. Let's all point and laugh at the shitty movies of 2026 so far. It's still like the 3rd week of January. That's how it always is. Because it's always re-releases, and they're always in the top 10.
As they should be. They're great movies. We should revisit them more often.
Greenland 2 is number 3. We Buried the Dead is 5. Whatever this is 7. Whatever that is 9.
There's a lot of foreign language stuff here.
Yeah. And coming in at number 10 is Bloody Heaven. So that is the weekend that was. Oh, look, the Pout Pout Fish is number 19. Oh, boy. Ugh. Next week is Mercy. That'll it's hard to say because, what'll be the first movie that beats Avatar?
We're probably
12 weeks out.
It's probably not going to be until February.
Let's see. February
there's at least one major release in February. I forget what
we got. Send Help. Send Help. If it's not Mercy, it'll definitely be Send Help. I'd
agree with that.
Send Help is getting a lot of marketing push right now. I'm seeing trailers for it everywhere. It's at every commercial. I watched they did an MLK NBA all day thing today. So 1:00 was the Bucks versus the Hawks. Then it was, I believe it was the Thunder versus the Cavaliers. Then the Knicks, Mavericks, and it's just going on all night. Every commercial break there was a trailer for Send Help. Every time I've been to the movies for the past month, I've seen the trailer for Send Help. So that's looking to be. I know my kids are really interested in seeing it. I've talked to Erica mentioned that even she was interested, and I told her she's not allowed. She can watch it when it gets, she can watch it from the safety of her home, so she can wander around and do laundry and fall asleep at her will, and not do the very same thing in the movie theater. So, but I figure that's probably maybe a good barometer for people's interest in Send Help. I think Send Help's going to be a pretty big hit. I don't see it doing Marvel numbers or anything when Marvel was popular. but I do see it doing. I see it being like weapons level successful.
Probably a little bit less than that, but given that it's got a reasonable budget, I assume that'll be fine. Again, something in the next little bit is, we do need to mention Avatar: Fire and Ash is underperforming, for the record. I know it's wild to say that about a movie that's made like $1.2 billion. I'm aware that that's wild to say.
Considering its two predecessors made both over $2 billion.
And considering that the budget on this, between what they actually admit to spending and then what the advertisement had to be, this thing probably needed $1.8 billion. I'm not saying it's a flop or a bomb. Please don't misunderstand me, people. It is underperforming. That's all I'm saying. Might still make money. This might still do the next one, but this was not what the previous two were, and that needs to be said out loud.
So we addressed this a few weeks ago when it broke. I think I haven't pulled anything up. I don't know all the details. You tend to follow Twitter a lot more closely than I do these days. But it looks like Netflix told Paramount to go piss up a rope, and is
repeatedly.
Warner Brothers told Paramount go piss up a rope.
Yeah, so repeatedly.
It's looking like Netflix is going to end up acquiring Warner Brothers.
Yeah, the CBS merge stuff is not seeming to go anywhere. At this point, what we're waiting on is like federal rulings. Mm-hmm. Because if we're trying to merge corporations of that size, you do need the federal government to sign off. And that's a little bit of a question mark. But short of that, looks like it's going to happen.
I saw something right before we went to air tonight that Elon Musk is considering buying WWE from TKO.
I don't know why he would, but
yeah. Anything else going on in the news? I know you sent me something that you may have wanted to discuss in the news segment.
I mean, we can do it briefly, but Kathleen Kennedy is finally out of Lucasfilm.
Yeah. They've teased this now so many times, I don't believe it anymore.
I know. You've cried wolf so many times that the wolf actually showed up, and no one's ready to. Like, she's actually left.
Here's the thing. I did watch the Midnight's Edge thing on this, where yes, the She-Devil is gone, but she left all of her flying monkeys in place. It's like, yes, you've melted the Wicked Witch, but the flying monkeys are in charge now. Who gives a fuck?
Dave Filoni is not going to be the savior, but so I wanted to just do a couple of things about Kathleen Kennedy at the end of the day.
I want to say Mandalorian and Grogu is going to suck.
It is. I haven't seen the trailer. Other people have and say they almost died from an embarrassment of having to watch it. So let me just say the following about Kathleen Kennedy. There was a period of time when I think she was a good producer. She worked with Spielberg a lot, and working with Spielberg makes you look good because he's really good at this stuff. But there's a degree to which I think her influence and participation in his projects was beneficial. In fact, pretty famously at one point during, I think it was the filming of E.T., or in that time frame.
Everything I've said about George Lucas can be said for Spielberg and Kathleen Kennedy. Working with a partner helps. You need someone in the room to tell you no.
Yeah, and she was on set, and she's one of the producers, and she pulled Spielberg aside and went, "Look, the way you're treating your crew is not going to get you what you want. Behave yourself."
Mm-hmm.
And he took that lesson to heart. In fact, he has his own production company and famously sticks up for the crew if a director is being out of line.
What was it? What was the movie where he had to pull a director by his pants and say, "Knock it off"?
It's one of my favorite stories. It's Twister. He does this to Jan de Bont, who is Twister's a famously tortured production for a lot of reasons. But partway through, because it's an Amblin production, Spielberg wants an update, and people in the crew are like, this isn't going well.
They're all of tattered clothing, and there's socks and no pants, and they're wearing chains, and they're all running off the set going, "I was a man once."
So yeah, he flies in on his private jet, tells Jan de Bont to meet him on the runway.
Mm-hmm.
Jan does, and Spielberg just lowers the door from the private jet, doesn't even get out of it, reads in the riot act, and then flies off, and the rest of production is smooth. Again, doesn't even get off the plane.
Let me say this about Kathleen Kennedy. a producer is not necessarily a creative person. I know you don't like him, and just let me use this as an example, not as a touting of his acting prowess, which I'm not in this particular case. But Miles Teller plays Robert Edwards, I believe his name is, the guy who produced The Godfather. Robert Evans. Oof. Take two. Miles Teller plays Robert Evans in the Paramount Plus show The Offer, which is about the making of The Godfather. And yes, he had some creative input, but he mostly let Mario Puzo and Coppola write the script. He definitely had, there were limitations on the production, but he mostly let Coppola have his yellow the way that he wanted it. A producer more has to be creative in the way things are done and how you get resources. So what you see in The Offer, where you see the creativity and the persistence, is in getting things that the craft people need to make the movie they need to make, or in being a junior psychologist and getting your actors to, be on set and perform the way you need them to. Like in the show, it is said that Al Pacino was really struggling with this and wasn't quite ready for the bright lights and big city of being a major feature actor in this production of The Godfather. And, Robert Evans got him there. You don't always have to have your hands, on the creative pen of making a movie. You can be creative in other ways. My problem with Kathleen Kennedy is she probably was really good at all the stuff I just said and not very good at the creative stuff. Also, this late in her life, clearly there was a lot of pent-up resentment and rage from how she was treated as a woman, more than likely, and she couldn't help but inject it into Star Wars to its detriment. I shall let you finish.
I wanted to get the good out of the way first. Mm-hmm. Again, she helped Spielberg a lot in different places. On the logistics side of things, I think you're right. She probably was, in several respects, a very reliable asset, and that's not nothing. The process of movie making is complicated, involved, multi-layered, and the problem with being involved in the movie making business is if you are not one of the forward-facing parts of it, you wind up being resentful of everyone who is, because you know how much you did to make them look like that, and they get all the credit.
Everybody thinks Steven Spielberg and George Lucas are these wild geniuses. Meanwhile, there's Kathleen Kennedy with reins in her hand going, but I made the trains run on time. Don't you understand?
And I mean, with Lucas in particular, it was actually much more his wife who did the editing for Star Wars that saved him. I mean, the same thing kind of happened with Tarantino. His longtime film editor passed away just before Once Upon a Time in Hollywood released. And you can see the difference in the end product, because that guiding hand is not there. So some of Tarantino's excesses come out a lot more in that. But I wanted to give Kathleen Kennedy a little bit of her flowers initially. She curbed some of Spielberg's bad impulses.
I hate when you use modern internet parlance. Sound like an old man.
In what sense?
Use flowers. Kids use flowers. Give her, it would be like saying props, except props would appropriately age you. Give her credit. Credit is what adults say.
The phrase "give someone their flowers" is very old. The fact that it came back into vogue recently is not my fault.
Don't try to speak to the children. They're not listening.
I'm not trying to, Mark. I don't care about the audience. You know this about me.
Anyway, you would like to give Kathleen Kennedy her credit where credit is due.
So she did rein in some of Spielberg's excesses, taught him some important lessons. I think what the most important lesson Spielberg learned, and he learned it around Raiders of the Lost Ark, partially because of her, was the new Hollywood, quote unquote, new Hollywood of the 60s and 70s is dying. The tortured artist getting everything in a day to make their movie because we're willing to go along with this. That's going away. The next phase of Hollywood requires two things: be on budget, be on time. So focus on those. Yeah. And it's a lesson that Spielberg learned very, very well. He and Nolan have this in common. This is actually one of the big things. You and I talked about this with Chris Nolan. When did he become big money Nolan? when everyone realized that when you sign a deal with him to make a movie by X date on X budget, he does not exceed X in either case. And in modern movie making, that's actually a big deal.
Yeah.
The problem is, I think, like you said, Kathleen Kennedy wound up trying to be too much on the fully creative side of things, had her own agenda, got promoted to the head of Lucasfilm.
A lot of parallels to Stephanie McMahon.
Probably minus the sexual abuse, but sure.
Probably.
It's Hollywood, man. Vince would have fit right in.
Yeah, really.
But ultimately, despite some of the good effects she had, here's her legacy, and it's really not complicated. You took the biggest pop culture phenomenon of the last 80 years. This predates me by a lot. And in a matter of about 10 years, you took it from this $1 billion project that endlessly reran on TV, that had endless amounts of toys being sold, endless amounts of fan support and fan enthusiasm, and in like 3 movies over 6 years. You took that and you destroyed it. You massacred it, you shot it in the street, and now one of the biggest pop culture IPs phenomena of modern history is reduced to a handful of not very successful television shows on a not very successful streaming platform. Good job.
I want to just go back to that. I was born in 1977. My birthday and my formative baby years, 0 to 4, are wrapped up in Star Wars. You have to understand, because when I look back at like my baby pictures, my first birthday, the toys of that era, things like cake, baking pans, and stuff like that, Star Wars was everywhere. My birthday and Star Wars are somehow indelibly tied, because probably a lot of kids' birthdays were. Like, I didn't know fucking Star Wars when I was 1. I was 1.
But you were a 1-year-old boy, and boys like Star Wars.
Yeah, that was probably the logic at the time. It was Star Wars is the most popular. It's 1977. My child is 1. Star Wars is the most popular thing in the world right now. Here's a Chewbacca cake and an R2-D2 cake. There's 2 cakes, fatty. Wonder why I look the way I do. But and for years it's going to be like that. Like, Star Wars is everywhere, whether you liked it or not. It was like it was as much a part of the culture as anything else, and it isn't anymore. Star Wars is not part of the culture. It's not part of the culture as Star Trek is not part of the culture. If you take anyone 20 years and younger, 7 to 20, they don't know what Star Wars is. They don't know what Star Trek is, if they don't have a parent where either one of those IPs is meaningful to them.
Frankly, even if they do have a parent with that meaningful IP, that being meaningful to them, they may not have not attached to it.
Right. It has, and I think more to the point of what you were saying is, you not only it's one thing to wreck an IP. Who hasn't wrecked an IP in Hollywood? You actually removed it from the culture is what you did. You made this thing so that it is not a unifying part of the culture in a way that's very different from the other IPs that are wrecked. Because at the very least, people still kind of know Spock and, Live Long and Prosper. They still get like Beam Me Up, Scotty. They kind of know what an Enterprise is. I don't know if people can say that about Star Wars anymore. Like, to those that know it won't understand what I'm saying. To the rest of the world who has no attachment to it, there's no longer an even like passive knowledge of what this is anymore.
And most
people think it's Star Trek.
It used to be at least a little bit of shared language, no matter what you were.
Sure. You would at least say it, I remember my dad telling me stories about like the Lord of the Rings, and somebody had like spray painted in between books or whatever it was, Frodo lives.
Yeah, that was a big thing.
Yeah, like people used to say, "May the Force be with you," just in the same way.
Yep.
Now no one would know what you were talking about. No one young, at least.
Pretty much. So you did that. You, with your obsession with trying to turn it into something about a British brunette, you then took one of the most beloved limited trilogy, limited edition shows, IPs ever, and you did the same thing. You got turned into a South Park meme that is the most mean-spirited thing they've done that's ever stuck. When you decided that, let's make an Indiana Jones movie again, which was a dubious idea to begin with.
Just let me die! Let me die!
And then make that the actual moral of your story?
Yeah. Hey, remember when Kylo Ren said, kill the past, bury it if you have to? Apparently not straightforward enough. So here, let's try it again. Let's just have old man Ford yelling on a beach, let me die already.
The crazy
I don't know
thing
why they were that subtle about it. Why he just didn't scream it into the camera. Let me die! Let me die!
The craziest thing about that line from Kylo Ren in The Last Jedi is it actually could have been an important theme for the new trilogy if the third one hadn't done the opposite.
Yes, there's a TikToker I like. I think she's like the Bimbo something, the Bimbo movie critic, I think her name is, and she actually has some very nice things to say about BoJack Horseman. So I'll be making that into a TikTok very soon. But
where you plug our review of BoJack Horseman as well.
Yes, yeah. I'm gonna compress the podcast that we did on BoJack Horseman into a TikTok because that apparently he's very popular on TikTok right now for some weird reason. But
anything that takes less attention but makes you feel like you did. We're doing like Cliff Notes of Cliff Notes at this point, and it's getting dicey out there.
She put up a TikTok on The Last Jedi, and my comment on her TikTok was, as a standalone movie, this is really, really good. As a middle part of a trilogy, this sucks. That's the biggest problem with The Last Jedi.
That it is out of place in a lot of respects because J.J. Abrams sucks at actually concluding anything and had no plan in place for anything.
Yeah.
Because again, J.J. Abrams kind of sucks.
Well, the prequel trilogy is the dumbest and then exercise you've ever seen. I will start a story. You will continue that story, and the third guy will finish the story. Is there a plan here, R.R. Martin? No.
Okay,
just
you mean the sequel? You mean sequel, not prequel trilogies, but yeah.
Yeah, that's not what I said. Yes, I meant sequel. All right. Anything else? Well, hang on. So the whole thing is she's leaving the store to Dave Filoni, who's one of her flying monkeys, and he's as much a put a chick in it and make her gay as she is. So what are we doing here?
Dave Filoni is not so much put a chick in it, make it lame and gay, as he is, I created this one thing that I really like, and now I make that thing the most specialist thing in the world, and everything has to revolve around it. So boy, I sure hope you like Ahsoka, because he does.
Could anyone in look, I'm willing to give Star Wars a second chance. God knows it wouldn't be the only broad I did. Can we please make that one? No, huh? All right. Can we at least give maybe fucking characters some personality and emotional depth instead of making everybody a cardboard monk? That would be nice.
And Jesse just burned you.
28 years later, the Bone Temple sounds like a documentary on one of those clubs Mark goes to. Yes, when I open my own swinger party house, I am definitely calling it the Bone Temple.
I can't believe I didn't make that joke. It never crossed my mind, or I would have.
All right.
Good one. Yeah, so I think that's it for money and news. But yeah, Kathleen Kennedy's gone, but Dave Filoni is not actually going to be any better.
No. Same boss.
Meet the new boss, same as the old boss.
That's the one. All right, folks. And now, are you ready for the critical review?
Are you ready? No! I said, are you ready?
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
Alrighty. Well, the tomato meter is 93% and the fan meter is 89%.
That's about right.
Considering we didn't lambaste the movie, I can't really comment one way or the other. Top critics drops it to 90%. All audiences drops it to 87%. So negligible difference in either way.
Within the margin of error, it's fine.
And the AI writes, a direct continuation of 28 years later ups the gore while deepening the dread. The Bone Temple is finally adorned by Nia DaCosta's unnerving direction, as well as Ray Fiennes and Jack O'Connell's inspired performances. If you know the name of the movie you'd like to see, press 1. Boning in the boneyard. All right. The future Xmas is Robert Winfrey, Sarah Vincent. If DaCosta is brilliant, it is for knowing how to remain faithful to the story and let Fiennes swan around as much as he wants. He transforms some truly astonishing and dangerous scenes into pure comedy.
You're desperately trying to enjoy this ironically and gave it a good review because you want to say nice things about Nia DaCosta.
The future Xmas is Robert Winfrey, Rachel Wagner of Rachel Reviews YouTube. The religious metaphors are heavy-handed and overdone. The torture scenes are also repetitive and deadening.
Okay, I'm going to just stick up for the gore real quick in this one. There's only one sequence of it. Let's be very clear about that. Like there's some violent and gross stuff in other places. There's only one scene of like prolonged uncomfortable torture. You can't claim that that's really repetitive when we have the one scene, we break from it, we come back to it near the end of it, and we're not re-engaging in the same activity. Like, I get that that's not for everyone, I really do, but I've seen so much worse structurally and in terms of like narrative momentum. This borderline felt restrained, even though I would have chopped that up a lot more.
This isn't a trauma film.
Yeah, personally, I would have chopped that up more, but again, I really would have just rather this was one movie instead of two, but I've been over that.
The future Xmas is Robert Winfrey, Dan Scully of Scully Vision. What we find here is a tale of science versus faith, of humility versus ego, of memento mori versus cult of personality. I don't believe you wrote that. That sounds like ChatGPT. I think that sounds like ChatGPT.
Here's the problem with that. Like when you get ChatGPT or any LLM to write something out for you, it uses just really solid structural rhetorical arguments, but it tends to slightly overuse them, largely because it just regresses to the mean. And the problem is then that utilizing those same rhetorical structures, because they're good and have existed forever, makes you sound like AI. I mean, someone did the I saw someone write a comment that said something that was, it's not X, it's Y, and I wanted to downvote them for being AI, but the comment was 10 years.
We almost made it through the entire podcast without him being kicked off because this internet is shoddy. Well, this is hard for me to do if he's not here.
Hang on, I'm back. Sorry.
Alrighty.
So my thing was just contrasting parallelisms are legitimate and valid as a form of conversation, critique, and rhetorical persuasion. Because the LLMs tend to overuse them a little bit, doesn't mean they're bad. Yep. AIs don't make that kind of mistake. You morons. Get better criticism than, oh no, they're used an M dash properly.
Speaking of overusing things, the future Mrs. Robert Winfrey, Jeffrey Harris of 401mania.com.
Okay, yeah, you are really overusing that at this point. You've done it to everyone we've talked about, and it's old.
Yes, on purpose, Robert. I am purposely beating it to death.
This only works if you never do it again.
There are some fine performances, nice direction, and interesting world-building elements on display. However, as a film franchise, you know what started it? The first lady was black, and then I just kept doing it to be funny. 28 years later, entries lack that effective snap and panache to create a satisfying standalone entry.
He's not wrong about that.
Okay. Boning in the boneyard. I swear to God, I thought that said Rosa Parks. Rosa Parra of the Latino
You know where
slant.
your head is.
28 years later, The Bone Temple delivers a promising entry into the franchise while presenting a strong film at the beginning of 2026. Its thought-provoking narrative combined with strong performances makes it one of the best films of the year. Lady, we're 3 weeks into January. Calm your tits.
Also, this is not a thought-provoking narrative. Sorry.
No, I don't know what thought was provoked by this. Hannah Strong of Little White Lies. Tell me sweet little lies. The Bone Temple offers a heady mix of stomach-churning violence, absurdist humor, and surprising glimmers of tenderness.
That is generally the cocktail that goes into these movies, yes.
I found one of your actual wives. The future ex-Mrs. Robert Winfrey, Carla Hay of Culture Mix. A rare sequel that is more innovative than its predecessor.
Not really.
Ralph Fiennes and Jack O'Connell give performances that make this unhinged movie an instant horror classic.
It's not a classic, but they are the best part of it.
There's also some subversive comedy mixed in with all the bloody gore.
Not as sure about that one. Again, there's a lot of people who just reacted awkwardly to some of those scenes, and so they default to must be intentional comedy, otherwise I'm an idiot.
Let's see. Speaking of I'm an idiot, Rain Jokinen of mullingmovies.com. Danny Boyle is set to direct a third entry in this trilogy, but I have to admit, after seeing The Bone Temple, I'd welcome more of Nia DaCosta's vision and vagina.
You're the only one. I don't think Nia DaCosta did a bad job here, but her track record at this point is not strong enough for her to be a selling point.
Dana Han Klein of We're Watching What? Ray finds is mesmerizing. DaCosta demonstrates a masterful understanding that the actual scariest thing you could ever be faced with is the dark side of human nature. Oh,
once again, piss off.
Ugh.
That is not the scariest thing you could ever be faced with. It's just the only thing your small brain can begin to wrap its head around.
Speaking of small brains, Sarah Michelle Fetters of MovieFreak.com. Armageddon has rarely been this beautiful or this profound.
This is not a profound film,
man. Fucking Groucho Marx over here.
How do you get the profundity out of this?
I
appreciate that you went right by Kurt Loder.
He didn't write anything of value.
No, he didn't. And hasn't for at least 20 years.
Dick. Speaking of Dick, Alyssa Wilkinson of New York Times, former paper. DaCosta's talents as a director are terrific, confident match for this material.
That remains to be seen, ma'am.
The future ex-Mrs. Alexis Hana, Amy Nicholson of Los Angeles Times. Gruesomely both low and highbrow, it's movie equivalent of Jello wrestling and anthropology. Take two. Woo! All right, Amy Nicholson coming in with the third base hit. Gruesomely both low and highbrow. It's the movie equivalent of Jello wrestling and anthropology professor at Burning Man, which may have been the inspiration of one of its stand-up characters. Ray finds spry and mesmerizing Dr. Ian Kelson.
Burning Man is not a thing you should go to.
You're no fun.
I'd just rather not take that risk, nor anyone else do so.
What if Amy Nicholson, wanted to bring you?
If she wanted to bring me into the desert, only one of us is leaving it.
That sounds like an admission that you'd go to me.
Oh, we'd never get there.
Okay.
Look, we would go partway into the desert, then one of us is leaving it, then one of us is going into a shallow grave, and the other is exiting the desert.
Speaking of desert-like vagina, Stephanie Zacharik of Time Magazine.
How did you get
The Bone Temple is part satisfying triumph, part missed opportunity, and its pluses and minuses bump against one another in a jangly discord.
It's not quite that discordant, but I get what she's saying.
A jangly discord is what happens at the Springer. Take two. I've lost words. At the Swinger Party House. Nailed it.
If we had a post-production staff, we wouldn't pay them enough to fix that.
Throw in some CGI. I don't know what to do here. Throw a monkey in there. Speaking of throwing a monkey in it, Travis Hobson of Punch Drunk Critics. 28.
Call me racist.
Oh, I don't be racist. Okay, sure. 28 years later, The Bone Temple is a phenomenal sequel and different enough from the prior film that those who didn't like it may find themselves enjoying this one.
I'm not sure about that.
Is there anyone? I'm just at this point. I'm just looking for fun people.
Yeah.
To invite to
I'm also
our,
kind of at a loss about why at this point, like, Spike isn't taking his new friend back to the safe community that he left.
Maybe
Like,
he does not
you
have to
know, a
get there.
safe spot.
Again, maybe he was far off the beaten path by the time they even got.
He
to
might
the
be
Bone Temple.
lost. Okay, I might give you that, but they weren't that far from Kelson. If he found Kelson, he can find his way back to there. So.
All the lonely people, where do they all come from? Robbie Collin of Daily Telegraph, UK. The leader of this crew, Sir Lord Jimmy Crystal, is played by Jack O'Connell with a Jack Nicholson-esque fiendish allure and an impressively specific Fife accent. Both he and Fiennes are tremendous, veering rivetingly between madcap and subdued.
Actually true, yes.
Outstanding. Oh, where's Grace Jones or Grace Kelly or Grace Randolph?
Got there eventually. I think she reviewed something else this week.
Okay, we'll end with this one. Friend of the show, best friend of the show, dear friend of the show, William Bibbiani of the Wrapped. Shut up. Nia DaCosta's smart, freaky sequel zooms in on the ongoing battle between sense and senselessness until it finds strong connective tissue between science and religion.
No, it doesn't. He's just missing the mark there on the connective tissue bit.
All right. Well, missing the mark of connective tissue is the phrase that pays here on the Rad Religion Broadcasting Network. So that brings us to an end of our tryst through the boneyard. That is 28 years later. Yesterday, speaking of trysts, myself and Jesse Starcher compared the 1989 War of the Roses to the 2025 remake, so kinda, with Benedict Cumberbatch and Olivia Colman called
It's
The
not
Roses.
it's not a remake of that movie. It's another adaptation of the War of the Roses story.
Yeah, it cribs lightly from both.
You know what? They're both good in different ways. Was kind of my takeaway from it ultimately.
I did not hate the new version. I said so last night. People should listen to that podcast. What else?
No, I don't think it's bad.
Oh boy. Tomorrow, Alexis is having a bunch of people over to review it. Welcome to Derry. No show Wednesday night. Thursday, myself and Shay Tate, who is just wonderful, well-behaved young lady, perfectly demure. She's welcome back at any time. I love her to pieces. We will be talking.
You're testing too much.
I, at this point, want to drive certain male friends of mine crazy because I'm not giving them the attention I'm giving new people on purpose. Bother me in the middle of the night, will you? Anyway,
there's that classic active passive aggressiveness.
That's what's going on my tombstone. Probably sooner than later. Shay Tate will be joining me on Triple Feature to discuss musicals, more musicals. We're going to be doing Rock of Ages, Tommy, as in the Who's Tommy, and Jesus Christ
Purple
Superstar. Who you know what you do? They know what you say you are. Next week, there'll be no show Sunday as I will be being dragged to a concert I didn't want to go to. However,
Which one?
Carbon Leaf. However, we will be reviewing on a week from tonight, myself and the aforementioned Jason Teasley and Robert will be reviewing the new Chris Pratt movie, Mercy. Mercifully, it's not a Russo brothers movie on Netflix.
Alas, that it is not direct to streaming, though.
Sessions is back for a new season. We're changing things up a bit. We're making two changes. One, we will no longer be doing the moments. We've run out of moments. However, we will be taking podcasts and compressing them into songs, starting with one of the most favorite podcasts I've ever done because it featured my two favorite people, Robert Winfrey and Jesse Starcher, not necessarily in that order. And it was our review. And it was our review of Too Old to Die Young.
Oh, God. You have to do it like in the style of like sad blues music or something.
I was thinking Only the Good Die Young by Billy Joel.
That's too upbeat. No. Like this is a sad, in like Louisiana Southern, again, like blues chain gang stuff.
I will take that into consideration. I'm really committed to Only the Good Die Young.
You look, man. You do what you're gonna do. I'm just saying, if you listen to that and you don't like what comes out of it, let's slow that down and turn it into a serious lament, because that's what it was.
You got it. A Delta Blues slave song.
I sent you that. I sent you that like blues chain gang cover of Gangster's Paradise.
Yes, you did.
Something in that style.
So speaking of active passive aggressive, a couple of months back, I was really pissed off about something because it was a day that ends in Y. But on this particular day, I was still doing 3 TikToks a day. I was trying to get work done. I was dealing with Erica and stuff and kids and stuff. And I just felt like no matter how many, despite working from home, no matter how many hours in a day there was never quite enough for me to take care of myself. I was too busy taking care of everyone and everything else. And my life seemed to be controlled by a series of alarms that were going off. An alarm to tell me to get up, an alarm to tell me to finish breakfast, an alarm to tell me to go sit at my computer, an alarm to tell me to go start my work computer, an alarm. My way of handling this was to turn off my alarms and write a Delta Blues Louisiana style Delta Blues slave song called The Responsibility Blues.
I assume that song went viral somewhat.
It's currently on Spotify under my second band name, Robert's favorite band, as a matter of fact, as of late, the Passive Aggressive Pansexual Peanut Butters.
Not even. I did not know you'd stuck with that name.
Yes. Did I tell you the most recent passive aggressive pansexual peanut butter song? I can't tell if you're frozen or if you're just waiting for me to continue the story. Nope, you're frozen. Hot diggity. La-di-da-di-da. See, I never know if he's going to come back really quick or if this is the end. The end, my friend, the end. So I don't know how long I need to vamp for. And I don't want to start this story because I'm just going to have to repeat it because I've told everyone else this story. He just hasn't heard it yet, which means I have to wait for him to come back in order for me to continue this damn story. What a tangled web we weave. All right, well, I'll come back to it. I was in the middle of doing plugs. So, yes, Sessions is back. We'll be doing Too Old to Die Young, set to the Only the Good Die Young. And the other thing that's different about Sessions this season is we're going to release songs one by one instead of waiting until the end of the year and releasing it as an album because nobody does that. I'm being anachronistic. So
you were about to tell me the latest pansexual peanut butters.
Yes. So I took my daughter for her birthday to go see a drag performer at a church. Hang on, called Flamey Grant. Okay, this is one of the Methodist churches.
That tracks more than you want to know. I know you're not deep into the religious denomination.
I've been made aware of how much that tracks. Pride flag on the altar and everything.
Almost the entire Methodist movement is dying at this point. And as I said previously, if you want your church to die, embrace progressivism. It will just kill it.
They decided to not only embrace progressivism, but also a drag performer who was born and raised a Christian person in Asheville, North Carolina, who was queer and then drag and took on the persona of Flamey Grant, which is a play on Christian performer Amy Grant. This person went number 1 on the Christian iTunes charts, mostly because people were listening to her music to find out what the fuck this was and why it existed. A lot of hate listening, which she made sure to tell everybody in the audience at the church I saw this at. So I did a TikTok on having seen Flamey Grant and some of the controversy behind it and what led up to this, the laws in Florida or the inability to enforce said law, but finding a way to do so anyway. Anyway, I did a whole TikTok on it. And I was inspired by what I had said on the TikTok plus what I had seen in the performance of this idea of just a very broad drag performer, very proudly singing gospel, being backed up by a black gospel choir singing through gritted teeth, and behind them is a group of like white Florida protesters. And I thought, okay, this makes for a great scene. I need this scene in song. So there's in the style of Flamey Grant, there is a gospel song called He Loves Me Too, Amen. And I was inspired by the show Amen, actually, in coming up with the music for this. You ever watch Amen with Sherman Hemsley?
Can't say I have.
Do you know the show at all?
I do not.
Well, there used to be a sitcom called Amen, starring Sherman Hemsley after his stint on the Jeffersons. He played a minister, a pastor, or whatever it was at this particular Baptist church. And the theme song was, very upbeat gospel.
As it would be.
Yeah. So
I mean, the theme to the Jeffersons is kind of like arguably upbeat gospel.
Arguably, beans don't burn in the kitchen. Anyway, so that's now on iTunes. Moving on up. So anyway, when you're done here, immediately go to Spotify and check out the passive-aggressive pansexual Peanut Butters and the latest greatest hit, He Loves Me Too, Amen, Robert Winfrey.
Or, do something slightly more valuable with your time, like banging your head into a wall.
I mean, I'm not here to judge your kinks. Shut up. So
I didn't say anything.
Speaking of kinks, we will be ending the month of January with
horribly overrated band.
With another John Waters focus. This time, instead of the Trash Trilogy, we're doing This Was a Request by Kat. And I do everything the pretty girls tell me to. We will be looking at.
Yeah, isn't that how you got into that?
Don't remind me. I'm.
If you do what you've always done, you're gonna get what you've always gotten.
We will be looking at Polyester, Hairspray, and Cry Baby. And that, I believe, is that. That is that for the month of January. Robert Winfrey.
I cover mixed martial arts and professional wrestling over at 411mania.com. I covered TNA Genesis on Saturday. I cover WWE SmackDown on Fridays. And when the UFC kicks back up this week, I'll be covering that on Saturdays. The podcast is not up yet. That's should be up at some point this week. I just need to get permission to upload directly onto the appropriate YouTube channel, which I don't have yet. And that just is going to take until the person who has administrative authorization puts me on it. So until such time as that becomes available, I just got to wait and then decide if I want to try and do it live or if I want to do it recorded. I might go back to live at this point, if that's easier than recording and uploading. We'll see. What were you going to say?
It is.
That's generally been my thought, so I still got to wait either way. So tune in for that. Once that gets sorted out, I will be trying to get that back up and running. If not, I'll get it figured out at some point. My year-end column is submitted. It will probably go up at some point either later today or tomorrow. So if you want to see my year-end awards for the year 2025 in the sphere of MMA, go read that in the MMA Zone of 411mania.com. Always appreciated.
Have you been hornswoggled yet into covering the Royal Rumble?
I have not yet been asked. I think I've made too many jokes about Saudi slave labor. Because I know how much that venue is not ready. So haven't been asked yet. We'll see. I'm not opposed to it. I've done it, I think, like 3 of the last 4 years I've wound up covering it, something like that.
Okay.
It's sort of like Survivor Series where somebody falls out or somebody has another thing that same weekend and they just ask me and I go, sure. So I may cover the Rumble. I may not. We'll see what's up when we get there. But it's 2 weeks away.
It's during the day, which means you have your entire night to go to swinger party houses or sex clubs or nude resorts.
Yeah, because nothing says a good time like a nude resort in central northern Utah on a Saturday night.
In January.
Yeah. Even you wouldn't do that to yourself, Mark, and you know it.
Not in Utah, I wouldn't.
You might in Minneapolis, but for other reasons.
Oh, don't get me started on what's going on in Minneapolis. That's a whole other podcast.
Okay, fine. You do it in Wisconsin.
Oh, I would do a lot of things in Wisconsin. They have so much cheese.
You might even be talked into doing it in North Dakota, and I lived in North Dakota, so I know there's nothing there.
Frozen fucking tundra is what it is. All right, speaking of frozen tundras, that's the end of our show. For speaking of frozen tundras, Robert Winfrey, I'm congested. Be well.
Indeed.
Be safe and behave.